Hello there guys, RMP792 here. So, here we go again. A couple of weeks ago somebody asked me to talk about the Elder Scrolls series. I did a 20-minute vlog on it last Monday, and literally as I was in the process of wrapping up, my camera decided to have a hissy fit and lose all the footage. So, I bumped it to this week, so I'd talk about it now instead. Incidentally, before I begin, if you have any requests for things you'd like me to talk about, comment section is there, feel free. And also, I want to be smug about something for a second. I gave blood yesterday. 5-10 seconds of pain for potentially saving more than one human life. So if you can, go do it yourself. If you're in England, it's pretty easy to, or if you're in Britain, it's pretty easy to find the NHS blood donation service. And I have no idea about other countries, but I'm sure you can find out if you want to. Google is a thing. So, Elder Scrolls series. I have played 2 of the Elder Scrolls games, that being Oblivion and Skyrim, and I'm going to take them in chronological order. I played Oblivion not long before Skyrim came out, actually, and I basically ended up getting it in a Steam sale because Skyrim was almost out, so they put Oblivion on sale. It was basically sort of the complete edition, so it had all the DLC and all the expansions and everything. I played it for about 3 hours and decided it wasn't very good. Mostly because it has aged hideously, insofar as the facial animation is terrifying. That minigame you do to try and make people like you is just awful, and the graphics are just really, really dated. In particular, it's the facial animation that you just look at and go, what the hell is that? So I can understand why people who've been playing it since it came out really, really like it. But in many, many ways, Oblivion just does not hold up. It's got lots and lots and lots of niggling little problems, all of which add up very, very quickly. So pretty much... Because I got out the dungeon, I started doing the main quest, and it didn't take long before I was just like, no, this just isn't for me. So yeah, that's my experience of Oblivion. It's pretty limited. Skyrim, on the other hand, I have actually played a reasonable amount. I didn't get Skyrim when it first came out. I picked it up in the Steam sale somewhere along the way. And Skyrim is a far superior game to Oblivion. They learned a lot from it. There's been obviously graphically it's a hell of a lot more impressive, which does actually make the, randomly exploring the world stuff much more interesting just from a pure, ooh, this is pretty point of view. But with that said, Skyrim is certainly not without its problems. If you're the kind of person who loves that go anywhere, do anything kind of game, I can understand why it's considered one of the greatest games ever. I am not. I'm the kind of person who likes a good, solid story to see me through. And Skyrim's main quest is just kind of... It's okay. It's not great. It's mostly let down by the fact that the characters aren't particularly interesting. Even companion characters in Skyrim tend to be pretty lacking. I mean, what's her name? That your housecarl that you pick up in... Is it Riften, the first city you're in? Doesn't matter. Your housecarl that you pick up, the one who's sworn to carry your burdens. I can't remember her name, even though I've spent 50 hours questing with her by my side, because she's just not interesting, because she has no real personality. She's there as NPC support, and that's it. She's not really much of a character, which is definitely a bit of a problem. But that's very much an issue that I have. I like a good main quest. I like something that's going to drag me along and make me want to go to the new, go to a new place, do a new thing, and then maybe I'll find an interesting side quest on the way. The other problem that Skyrim's storytelling has is that it's a very repetitive game, insofar as if you turn up to a guild, you know exactly how the quest lines are going to go. And this holds true for the College of Winterhold. This holds true for the Thieves Guild, the Assassins Guild, I'm pretty sure it does for the Bards Guild, though I've never actually done that quest myself. Is it the companions who are the werewolves? Yeah. And it all follows the same basic pattern. Oh, you want to join our society, do you? Well, we're not sure about you. You seem like a bit of a useless bugger. Tell you what, go and do this piss-easy side quest for us, and that'll prove that you're worthy to join us. So you toddle off and you do a piss-easy side quest and you come back. Well, I suppose you didn't bollock that up too badly. I suppose you can join us. Incidentally, come along to this big meeting where we'll get out of the way the fact that two of our senior members hate each other for some reason. Okay, now that you know that two of our senior members hate each other for some reason, go off and do a more difficult quest for us. So you toddle off and you do a more difficult quest and toddle back. Oh dear, something dreadful seems to have happened. We appear to have been betrayed from within by one of our members. And now our leader is dead and everything's going tits up. We need somebody who's qualified to lead us. You, person who we've only known for about 3 days. Would you like to be the new head of the guild? Well, you'll have to defeat the old, the guy who's betrayed us. So you toddle off and you go and kill him in some sort of epic fight. And then you come back, well, I suppose you're worthy of being our leader now. Every single one of the guild quests is the same basic structure. And granted, I'm boiling it down and I'm taking the piss, but it gets very, very repetitive. And frankly, by the time that you're the head of the Guild of Assassins, the Archmagi of the College of Winterhold, the best thief in what's that? I can't remember the names of the cities. The best thief in the Thieves Guild and the head of the Companions and everything else. It's starting to get silly. And I appreciate you are the Dragonborn, with a soul of a mighty dragon, which that's an interesting idea. I can get behind that as a central thing. But it gets a little repetitive. So honestly, Skyrim itself is a perfectly fine game. It's the kind of thing I can sit down and play for a couple of hours and enjoy. But it's not, it's never going to be in my top 10 games list or anything like that. The main thing that Skyrim has always had going for it is mod support. And that means I need to talk about Croatian Club. Jesus. Right. I'm going to talk about mods in general, and then I'll talk about Croatian Club. Because, Anyway. Try not to drop my phone. Anyway. But, Skyrim has for a long time basically been a base for people to put mods on. And there's a lot of very good mods for Skyrim out there. I don't play with many installed. I've got a couple of graphical improvements, some facial improvements, a serious increase in the quality of hair, number of hairstyles, available hair colors, because I always feel weird if I'm not playing a game as a red-headed woman. Whenever the game has a character creator, I will almost invariably create a red-headed woman, and I'm talking that kind of dark gothic red that doesn't actually exist in nature. But it's very much a case of what else? Oh, and my Medusa armor. The Medusa armor is gorgeous. I can't remember who made it and put it up on the Steam Workshop, but it's absolutely fabulous to look at. I tend not to use the helmet from it because it's a bit over-designed. Because it's actually got effectively the Medusa head snakes coming off it, which looks pretty badass, but also looks kind of over the top. So I tend to basically run around without the helmet. But actually, I think I picked up the no helmet mod somewhere along the way, as in the one that basically lets you equip a helmet while also keeping it hidden. But that, that's mostly it. Maybe a few weapons and that kind of stuff. But for the most part, I'm quite boring in my Skyrim mods, which is fine. There are people who have done absolutely ridiculous things with Skyrim. Looking at you, mods that turns all the dragons into Thomas the Tank Engine. That mod is still hilarious, to be fair. But anyway, mods are an excellent way to expand the life of something, and something like Skyrim, which is this big, massive open world, is really designed to be modded to hell. There was an article on PC Gamer quite a while ago where they basically installed a whole bucket load of completely random mods and just played Skyrim through just to see what happened. There was a lot of weird ones. The house Carl ended up in completely ridiculous fashion choices. But, that was the kind of thing you would expect. And, doing that, his comment is it was like almost playing a new game. Because there were so many changes and he had no idea what was coming over the next hill. So it's a game that does allow you to do that. And I absolutely understand why people really appreciate that level of freedom and customization. It's just not my scene. But now I need to talk about the Croatian Club, don't I? Ah, Jesus. Right. The Croatian Club is Bethesda's latest thing to basically do paid mods. And I am not opposed to modders getting paid for their work because, there are some really big, really complex mods out there that, where they deserve to be paid for their work. I mean, there's one team that's currently effectively remaking, is it Morrowind? Yeah, I think they're remaking Morrowind in Skyrim. And, that's taken them absolutely years to do because obviously it's an insane amount of work. And those guys probably should get paid for doing that if people are going to play it and enjoy it. But the stuff that's come out in Croatian Club so far, and I'm going to be using the examples from Fallout 4 because this is the stuff that I've heard about. I haven't specifically heard about anything related to Skyrim yet. The stuff for Fallout 4 is things like, Pip-Boy skins and an extra weapon or two. Or a redesign of the power armor that turns it into the horse armor. Funny joke, Bethesda. We all remember the last time you tried to pull this bollocks on us. So, and honestly, that's not worth paying for. Those are the kind of things that I think mods do very well and do for free. Take Fallout, for example. I have a mod that changes the colour scheme of the vault suit so it's black and red rather than blue and yellow, and it looks really cool. So that makes it a lot more fun to run around the wasteland just looking kind of slightly more badass, even though you keep your vault suit the whole time and just, got piecemeal armor stuff. And granted, it means that Piper's nickname for you of Blue doesn't work anymore because, well, you're black and red, not blue and yellow. But either way, it's a tiny change that I quite like. And whereas, and paying for that just, no, it's a tiny tweak. Whereas if it was as I say, those guys who are basically rebuilding Morrowind in Skyrim, those guys deserve to get paid. I would not object to paying for that in the same way that I don't object to paying for large-scale DLCs. So it's to take a simple example. I don't tend to buy. I'm going to use the example of Dragon Age 2 because I remember this as an example. They released some extra armor and weapons as DLC, and you had to pay for it. And I basically went, nope, not paying for that. But I had no problem paying for for Mark of the Assassin or Legacy, because those added quite a lot. They added new armors, new weapons, but they also added new storylines, new places to go, important stuff. And I had absolutely no problem paying for that. So it's a matter of scale. Small stuff, so weaponry skins, additional armors, these kind of things are relatively, and I appreciate a lot of work does go into a lot of these things, but are relatively straightforward, and I don't like paying for them. Big stuff, I have absolutely no problem paying for. And to use another example, the XCOM 2, when they made it very mod friendly, I've got a bunch of mods on XCOM 2, and they're mostly voice mods. I like playing with silly voiced characters in my squad. So my squad consists of the Nostalgia Critic, Yahtzee from Zero Punctuation, Fry and Leela from Futurama, and as I say, a bunch of silly voice mods just to make the characters a bit more fun when they're running around getting horribly murdered by aliens. And I don't think I should pay for those. Whereas I wouldn't object to paying for something like Long War 2, because that's taken a lot of effort and it just makes significant changes. The fact that it's available for free is really good of the developers of that, because given their working relationship with Firaxis at this point and with the people who made the original game, they probably could have charged for it if they wanted to, and they chose not to. So I respect them on that front. And that's pretty much where I stand on the whole modding issue. Small stuff absolutely should be free. Big stuff, yeah, we probably should have to pay for it, because these people deserve to get paid for their time and effort. There is a grey area there, of course. So for example, if somebody has a collection of 100 weapons and 50 new armors that they're going to put into Skyrim, and you do get things like that, that's kind of a grey area where it's a case of, well, okay, that's a lot of work, to add in that many new things. But if you only really want, say, one of those weapons, so for example, I ended up getting a Lord of the Rings weapon pack for Skyrim, so I could basically be running around with Anduril, as a giant two-handed sword, and Legolas's bow, on my hip. That's another mod I've got, by the way, that puts your bow or your quiver on your hip. So you basically draw from down here rather than up here. And they even tweak the animation as well. So that's a grey area. I freely admit I don't have an easy solution for that. Because that is obviously a lot of work, but at the same time, it's a lot of little things. As opposed to sort of one big thing. So it's difficult. But ultimately, that's kind of what Bethesda games do. They give you a lot of options. And they really are, these days, effectively bases for mods. And yeah. I say, the Elder Scrolls series has its problems. Weak main storylines and fairly piss-poor characters. But at the same time, they've got a hell of a lot going for it. I mean, Skyrim feels like a vast open world where you can go anywhere and do anything and meet anyone, and it's the classic example of spreading too thin, I think, in many ways, because my favourite example of this is the way it basically goes, oh, you can marry anyone, but when they have no real personalities, what's the point? One is the same as another. So yeah, that's really where I stand in the Elder Scrolls series. It's more interesting for what the community does with it than what Bethesda themselves did with it. But Bethesda themselves are being kind of dicks at the moment, frankly. As I say, the Croatian Club is not a bad idea, but it's being used for the wrong things. It's being used for cosmetic items and skins, and additional weapons, and that stuff should be free as mods. Whereas what the Croatian Club should be is a way for big-scale modders to actually get paid to create something vast and epic and wondrous. So yeah, I think that's pretty much all I've got on the Elder Scrolls series. It's good, but with problems, is the honest answer. If they finally ever get around to doing Elder Scrolls 6 and not just re-releasing Skyrim again, because, I mean, I'm trying to think. We had the original release, we had the re-release, we had the re-re-release, we had the Game of the Year edition, we had the versions coming out on Xbox One and PS4, now we've got the version coming out on Switch. I mean, this game is 6 years old at this point, and it's still getting re-released, so I think that implies they haven't got a number 6 in the work, otherwise they'd be toning all this down by now. Unless they're just trying to make sure everybody remembers Elder Scrolls before they announce number 6, but I don't know. We'll see. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day, because all I've been doing there is hypothesizing. Oh, one thing I do want to talk about. I never bought any of the expansions for Skyrim. Yet for some reason I appear to have Dawnguard. Insofar as I just happened upon a random quest giver one day who basically said, "Oh, have you heard about this castle of vampires? Yeah, you might want to go do something about that, what with you being the Dragonborn and all." And I was like, hang on, I thought this was the Dawnguard expansion. I don't have that. But did they pull a Dragon Age 1 and put a quest giver in there who basically advertises the DLC? Let's go have a look. Toddle off and, yeah, sure enough, apparently I have Dawnguard. And I'll be honest, that's actually a better quest than the main game because A, it bothers to give you an actual companion character, and let's be honest, it's a vampire voiced by Laura Bailey. Side note, how have we not got another Blood Rain game yet? I appreciate the gameplay of them has been kind of janky, but Laura Bailey is a vampire. A sexy redhead vampire. Anyway, I'm getting off topic, but Dawnguard is an interesting little expansion, and I like the fact it genuinely gives you two completely different paths, depending on whether you side with the vampires or you side with the vampire hunters. And you end up with basically a magic vampire killing bow at the end, or you end up with a bow that blots out the sun, which is pretty kind of awesome. So, yeah, that's an example of what you can do with a good solid expansion. You take the feedback and you change based on it. Companion characters a week. Okay, here's a one we've spent a lot of time developing, and we've got an excellent VO actress in and everything else. Okay, choice and consequences feels a bit lax. It feels like we always end up going the same way. Oh, fair enough. Here's a massive decision that will significantly impact things. Okay. Weapon variety could be slightly better. Have some crossbows. They're worthless, but have them anyway. So lots of little things like that. And yeah, ultimately that Dawnguard is actually a microcosm of what Skyrim itself could have been if they'd refocused. So hopefully they'll take that feedback going forward if they do make a sixth game. I'd love one with a really good, solid plot with some really good companion characters. Give us difficult moral choices to make and all this kind of good stuff. The stuff that BioWare usually does pretty well. I'll talk about BioWare at another point, but this is what gaming can do. It can give you difficult choices to make. Do you do something that's going to screw over one person you like or many people who you don't know, for example? That's the classic go-to one, and it's always an interesting one because that ultimately comes down to how good a job has the writer done making you like this character. But so ultimately those are my thoughts on Skyrim. A good game with a bunch of problems, an excellent base for mods, and Bethesda really need to stop re-releasing it. So yes, thank you very much for watching, and if you have any requests for anything else for me to cover, as I said, comment section is there. Go and get holes poked in your arms, give some blood, and yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in future vlogs.